We're back. We're back in the saddle. Angela. Hi. How's it going?
Uh, I'm I'm a little sad for the trees, but I'm doing okay.
You're a
We
little sad for the trees right
Yeah,
now?
we had our landlord ordered a tree service, but instead of like somebody who like comes and takes care of the trees, like a fucking arborist or like
Why
services
do you
that
say that with disdain?
like because I feel
Why
like
effing arborist?
because a lot of tree
What's up, Guilty
services
Angel?
are actually like tree caretaking services.
Yeah.
But instead, he just got these guys who just like chop them all the way down to the stumps, and I'm sad about it. So we used to have a lot of trees on this property that we rent on, and now there are far fewer trees.
I do feel like
Just in the last 2 days.
I do feel like we've lost like elders.
Yes, they
Like
were really tall, which is why they got chopped. But I feel like they didn't have to get completely chopped. Maybe they could have gotten like, I don't know, coppiced. Have you ever seen that technique?
Thank you for showing up so early, Guilty Angel. It's so great to see you. Thank you for being so kind to us. We're so glad to have you hanging out with us. What was that, Angela? I'm sorry.
I was just gonna share some tree nerdery.
Yeah, tell me tree nerdery. Let's go. We're just waiting for some folks to line up with us and hang out with us. So we're just small talking.
Have you ever seen those like trees? Like sometimes you'll see whole rows of orchards where it looks like a really big fat stump and then a bunch of branches, but then they're kind of like they're like cut off at like the first knuckle, from the stump, and then the branches,
Yes, I think.
and then there's a bunch of like little shoots that come off.
Yeah, I think I know what you mean.
That's a technique called coppicing. And so what it does is it just creates a whole bunch of new shoots, and it's good for farms because it means that all those new shoots are going to sprout more and more and more fruit or whatever it is you're trying to grow.
Fruit.
Yeah. So I don't know why they couldn't just do that to the trees and make them shorter so that they don't fall in houses, but not have to like outright murder them all the way down to the ground. So it makes me sad
I was sprinkling in L.A.
because I'm a tree hugger.
You are a tree hugger. I'm a tree hugger.
I know. I think that's why
I'm a bona fide
it's
like
one of
for
the
real
things
one.
I like the most about you. I like a lot of things about you, but that's one.
Yeah, I love trees. Well, I love life, man. I really do. I just bloody love it. I have some really cool stuff too. I guess not really cool stuff, but a couple of little tidbits.
Yep.
Oh, it's sprinkling in L.A. So that means if it's sprinkling in L.A. that it's almost panic.
Why?
Well, I don't know. Like most of the time in LA, don't you feel like people are a little panicked when it rains a little bit? Like here we get like downpours and it's like whatever. But in LA, it's like it's a thing.
When it rains a little, I think everybody thinks it's nice, but when it rains a lot, everybody's like really scared of mudslides, especially after all these fires.
I kid, of course, about sprinkling because oh, we got to watch Squid Game, huh? It's funny because I was going to ask for recommendations on what to tackle next. Maybe we should give it a go.
Okay.
Do you want to give it a go? We'll crack some lychee nuts tonight over an episode. See what it's like. What do you think?
I like dystopian series.
I love.
I'm not really into the
series.
sci-fi quite as much, but I guess it's all sci-fi if it's dystopian because you have to imagine.
Oryx and Crake. That's probably my favorite dystopian thing I've read thus far. And I've read The Road, and I've read 1984, and I've read Animal Farm. Is that dystopian?
Do you think they're going to make Oryx and Crake into a series or a movie?
I mean, I would imagine at some point somewhere somebody will. It's amazing how much how much of a she was almost a prophet, Margaret Atwood.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like a lot of what's in a Handmaid's Tale is kind of happening right now.
Well, she always says about it that she only included in her book things that had already happened and were already happening in other cultures than our own.
Yeah.
She's like, most of the stuff isn't happening in Canada, but this stuff does happen in like religious sects and in other cultures. So that was one of the interesting parts about her dystopian creation, right? Is that it didn't take a lot of imagination. She just compiled things. What do you want to drink in the studio?
It's empty, dude.
I know. I emptied it on purpose.
Well, now she's like ringing her bell.
There's another one out there.
I'm very excited about getting into the Karen Read. Now, I definitely want to wait a minute until we build a little more audience, but like...
Do you want to talk about the Justin Baldoni, Blake Lively news?
Yes. Delicate's here. Guilty Angel's here. Dr. Susan is here. Jessica's here. Someone else is here. Dr. Susan's doing double time because she's just a saint. Okay, yeah, let's do it. Blake Lively has asked to drop 2 of her, I guess it was, I think 10 or 11 complaints. And the 2 with regards mental anguish, basically.
Yeah.
So she's dropping her mental anguish claims. She's asked Judge Lyman. Is his first name Simon Lyman? No, that's not his. It's not Simon Lyman, is it?
No, but it should be.
Judge Simon Lyman. Judge Lyman, they said, what's up, Danielle? I'm so glad to see you. That's so great to have you tonight. So, yeah, Doug Lyman, Doug Lyman's brother.
Judge Simon Lyman.
Judge Simon Lyman. He has ruled... interestingly enough, they're having this big argument about with or without prejudice when it comes to her dropping these 2 items off of her litigation. And she's dropping them to prevent her medical records from being released into discovery. Baldoni's attorneys have asked for a HIPAA waiver so that...
I'm sure he would love that.
Yeah. Well, and a HIPAA waiver is standard in this situation that she's in. Like, so it's entirely common that if you're going to sue somebody and claim mental anguish, that they perform mental anguish, that, then they're going to open up your medical records to see if there's an actual diagnosis and, what kind of, what's going on medically there.
I think you and I talked about this. We predicted this when we first read her allegations, like her claims, her charges.
Yeah.
Whatever it's called. But she, when she said...
Her claims are fine.
Wasn't it? Didn't you bring it up a long time ago? I think I feel like it feels like 5 years ago now, but... You said, oh, well, that's going to have to be something that she has to prove in discovery. She was saying, somebody was saying it was really, maybe it was MJ, the lawyer. They're saying it was really... strange that she said mental anguish for her and her children, because then that opens up her kids' records for discovery. Yeah. But this was always something that they predicted.
Well, it doesn't. There are lines there. I don't think that a court would allow them to examine the children or the children's records, but it definitely wasn't her smartest play. It was interesting because the whole thing, I mean, they had to know when they filed that there would be a HIPAA waiver coming, because you can't make these kinds of claims and not back them up with evidence if you expect to win. So I wonder if, and here's what's interesting about it, because in the same way that a DA will load up 30 charges onto a defendant in order to pressure the defendant into taking a plea deal, in civil litigation, they'll just rack up a bunch of things that they want to, claim you did so that you can so that they can all be negotiation points. So I do wonder if it was perhaps their intention early, Blake Lively's strategy, to actually settle.
Do you want to fix your framing?
What's up, TikTok? I'm sorry if I look terrible. Here, let me try. I got to look beautiful, man. I mean, I'm a man in his prime. Look, you see what I'm saying, though?
Yes, I do. I think that that's really smart, and I wouldn't have put that past them, because they know that they're going to go through motions to dismiss, and that some of these things are going to shed, but the strongest claims will prevail.
Well, that would be surprising to me, because I've always maintained that I felt very much like this was like the Taylor Swift, sort of mentality in terms of how she, Blake Lively, was going to handle this, meaning like, no quit.
No quit.
And
here's the thing.
And yet here it might be that she was actually, or that the lawyers were actually stacking things up, perhaps to use in a negotiation, because it doesn't look great that she's dropping those 2 things, even though even though there's a certain amount of them, I think there's a certain number of people out there who are going to make this into a bigger deal than it is.
I think the only
and that's why, right? That's why it was not the smartest thing. So you got to wonder why they did it.
I think that she doesn't really lose anything because she's still keeping her claims of retaliation, which obviously has it built in that it's a distressing thing to go through.
Right.
She also, I think the judge was very clear that she is not going to be forced to turn over any medical records. He's ruled on that she doesn't have to.
Right.
She doesn't have to give them medical records to blast all over TMZ or whatever the fuck they were going to do with it, right?
Yeah. Do you have to swear?
Knowing these guys.
Do you have to curse?
Excuse me.
Your children here. I'm kidding.
But he also said that he is that he's going to allow her to make claims of emotional distress as it pertains to her other charges.
Okay. Yes.
Right? Like it was emotionally distressing.
What he's saying is that she can claim that that those moments were distressing.
Yeah, she was.
But that she doesn't have to prove them in terms of.
Exactly. It was emotionally distressing when I was sexually harassed on set.
Can I just interrupt for a second because we always do a pattern interrupt when somebody jumps in that we haven't met before and who has nice things to say. It's just two sisters who just showed up. Thank you for showing up and thank you for reading Too Real. She said, I've read your book and I loved it. Are you and Jeremy still friends? Well, I would say we're not friends. Great. That is so great. And that is, it's just absolutely, you have no idea what that does for me.
Thanks for coming to hang out and saying that. That's really nice.
Like, imagine if I'm underwater and I can't breathe and then I need to, or I'll perish. And then suddenly, and there's nothing there. There's no apparatus. And then suddenly like you appear and you give me breath. That was weird. Thank you so much.
A hand
to
pull you up.
You gave me a hand. You pulled me up to air. Anyway,
it was a whole elaborate thing.
It was a little too much. Well, we try. I'm so thrilled that you're here. This is what
editing that book was like.
I'm so thrilled that you're here. And by the way, just so you know what I do here, what we do here. This is Angela. Of course, you know Angela from the book. And what we do here is you're famous in the book,
Don't tell me that. I'll go hide.
Everyone knows who you are. Leave. Everyone knows who you are. Well, anyway, I kid. Where was I? I'm sorry. Jeremy's sister and I. Well, we're not friends. I would say no. We haven't talked in so long. But I will say that that he's dear to me in my heart, and I would be sad to believe that I wasn't in his. I felt like I was always a good friend to him, and I think that I honestly, I really truly can't understand why I don't talk to almost anybody anymore. But time isn't always kind, I suppose. But I feel great. And by the way, we cover these things, I guess is what I was going to say to you. Just two sisters. We cover things like the Karen Read trial. We also cover the Blake Lively.
They cover like.
Well, we're yeah, I know
like
we
we're
follow
qualified.
It. Well, I mean, we're human beings, so we're qualified to that extent, and I'm also a filmmaker who brings a certain, that kind of perspective, at least a little.
Yeah, your perspective about the Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni lawsuit has been really, really important because I think I think that they're really exploiting people's ignorance about how movies are made, and what goes on behind the scenes and what's expected and what the hierarchy is and how things are produced and what it means to steal a film and what it means when they're lying about a film being stolen.
Yeah, well, and also just like stupid things like complaining about the wardrobe, and so to be able to recognize when somebody's being blasted in the press for things that aren't actually an issue or that wouldn't
totally normal.
Yeah, things are, even if they're not normal, they're not that problematic. I mean, problems happen in every film ever made. I can't imagine that there's one that was ever made that that didn't bring its own unique set of problems. It's kind of the fun of filmmaking, in my opinion, really.
I'm just gonna read this part again. I've read your book and loved it.
Yeah, I know. It really is the greatest thing that ever happened to me. It really is. Honestly, like I can't express the joy that brings me.
Every one of you authors are the same. Like it's like really that's all. Like none of you guys are ever like trying to make a ton of money or trying to like get your shit optioned. You really just want it to be read and loved.
Oh,
so
here's the thing.
Wonderful.
You spend 4 years. Do you know what I mean? Like I spent 4 years. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just not like when you put that much in, all you can hope for is that you've written it and it's worth it. You know, like every kind of big project you ever do, if you ever do a big project in your life, whether it's a movie or a book or, you know, a really epic painting, whatever it might be, any kind of big project. And those, you know, and really that is subjective, because a big project to somebody might be a 40-hour project because of their life. You know what I mean? Whereas for me, a big project is like years, you know, because I'm just a guy with a bunch of boxes going up a mountain. I don't know what that means.
You're doing a few of these tonight.
I'm Johnny Non Sequitur tonight.
I like them. They're entertaining. Keep them coming.
4 years of just combing my memories and doing the best I can to try to create something that I believe would be worthwhile and be worth reading. And because if I failed at that, not only would I have failed as a writer, but I would fail at my objective, which is to free Don's Plum, to truly get the truth about you know, and to combat like the biggest star in the world. And on every level, I'm being suppressed. We know this. We've lived through it. I've lived through it with like I've got like literal press. I hope one day there's a documentary made, because I have so much now. There's just this archive just keeps building and building and building. And the story really is, you know, it becomes even more and more fascinating as the years pass. But anyway, I love you guys. Oh, Rocket Chips is over on TikTok.
Sweet.
What's up, Rocket Chips? That's so cool, man. It's so great to see like we have some friends. It's really cool. Anyway.
Jessica
emotional.
on TikTok said, you should reach out to him. My friend's brother worked on his FBI show and said he was lovely.
Yeah. Let me tell you, man, there's a whole sequence of Jeremy Sisto that got left out. And if me and Jeremy were talking and he was like reading early drafts, he'd be like, you can't cut this, because it's just, it makes it look so amazing. And it's of course completely truthful, but like, he is, Jeremy, he's just a lovely human being who cares about humanity. He doesn't just care about his friends or his family. He truly does care about humanity. I loved telling the story in Vegas when he found those people and he gave them the tickets to see the Grateful Dead. It wasn't even a thought to him to get his money back. It didn't occur to him to get anything for the tickets he purchased with his own money. That wasn't his objective. His first objective was like, who can I make really happy?
That's so awesome.
Yeah, he's lovely. That's
a really good quality in people.
He's worth all the love, I believe. And I hope he hasn't gotten tainted and bitter, because Hollywood has a way of making people tainted and bitter. He's had a good life, but it's not the life he wanted or expected to have based on conversations I had with him during the 90s. Mm-hmm. You know, he was certainly looking more for more of a career that DiCaprio had than the one he's had. You know, I'm sure he's grateful because he's a fucking millionaire and children and wife.
There was
and
also,
blah, blah, blah.
like in the 90s, I remember a bunch of people talking about how there was this whole like film actor supremacy where if you made it to films, you never went back to TV. And it was like, and now it's kind of
it was snobbery. It was
now there's so much amazing original television shows being made and really making careers that that's all disappeared.
But what's interesting is like, although Jeremy was into the like premium TV, right, when he did 6 Feet Under, obviously, but then he went right into network, because network pays so much money and they never stop working. So like in network, you get like the money's just ridiculous. He took the money. I
know. I think that's what the supremacy started out as. Like if you really want to be a film actor, but it means that you're like rarely going to work and maybe you make some money, but you don't make as much money as if you now.
Here's what's funny, bro. In Hollywood, when I was bumming around Hollywood, there were actors. The place was stuffed. Every fucking party, every house party, every bar, whatever that I went to, stuffed with actors. And there were really two kinds of actors. There were the TV actors. They were all the well-dressed people who were buying drinks and
they made
fucking
money.
Enjoying life. And then there were the film actors. And they were all in clothes that were old and too long. And, you know what I'm saying? They all looked sad.
But it was such a prestige
thing. They were stressed like this. Well, TV people were like, you know, whether it was soap or sitcom or whatever, hour-long dramas, they were all like just, you know, free and easy were the TV guys, but they had like, you know, and then
they had the prestige career, but
they didn't have the prestige. They had the money. And
no. I'm talking about the film actors.
Exactly. Anyway, it's kind of interesting.
Dr. Susan is with us and on TikTok said, signing in from San Francisco, work trip 2 nights.
Enjoy
Have you
your
ever
trip
been
in
to San Francisco?
Yeah, of course. I went and saw the Grateful Dead in San Francisco.
Oh yeah, but did you spend any time in the city?
Not too long. No, just a few days.
I've only been up for like shows that my friends played or whatever, but one place I did go and I really recommend is the Botanical Garden.
Oh yeah.
It was really, really wonderful.
I always hit up the Botanical Garden if you're in it.
I am that kind
Tells
of
you a lot. No, it does. It's a great.
do.
It's a fucking perfect. That's perfect advice.
Right along the walkway, there's this one tree that has really fuzzy leaves. I remember from the San Francisco Botanical Garden, and I took some, which I know is like a really big faux pas. Like you're not supposed to start like tearing leaves off of trees in a botanical garden. But they were so fuzzy, and the tree grew so big and healthy that they were massive. And I used them for bookmarks. For like, because if you dry them and you press them in a book, then when you're reading, you can still feel the fuzzy leaf.
Really?
Yeah, they're really, really great.
It's like a little plush toy?
Yes, it was perfect. And I used them for bookmarks for like years before they finally disintegrated. So anyway, I recommend it.
That's adorable.
Thanks.
By the way, in case you don't know, we're also on YouTube. I am going to get my streaming key eventually and be able to broadcast everything that I'm doing on YouTube onto TikTok. But for now, unfortunately, I am incapable of doing that unless I go and I sign with an agency, which I have not yet committed to do. I might do that. I'm trying to, weigh that. But in the meantime, if you do want to see Angela or you want, the better audio and all that stuff, just click the link in my profile. But otherwise, wherever you want to hang out with us, we want to hang out with you.
Oh, Delicate said, "Oh, hey, Dr. Susan, you're in my area. I'm in the East Bay. And I always tell people to go to Alcatraz at night."
Oh, shit. Why didn't I?
Can you do that? I didn't know you could do that.
Apparently you can. I wonder, is there eating on Alcatraz? Donald Trump wants to reopen it.
Oh my God, I
Idiot.
know. Well, I mean, he has to come up with like a stupid idea every day in order to distract people from the actual evil doing.
Yeah.
He has to be like, what stupid idea am I gonna tell everybody about today? Erica said, "I love when we learn that people are nice and good people," about Jeremy Sisto.
He's a wonderful guy. He deserves the love, and that guy wanted me to succeed so bad. He wanted to help me succeed so bad, and he was onto something, man. Like I to toot my own horn, but I was ready. I was ready for that moment. I didn't. It was so interesting because I didn't even know that there was a moment that I was ready for before I got there, which is really interesting and cool, But when I got to Hollywood and I discovered what I could actually be as opposed to what I thought I could be, because I didn't know that being an art house director was a fucking option. Mm-hmm. And I was never going to live beyond my means. I was never interested in like becoming some lavish guy up in the hills with some, infinity pool and, objectified women everywhere. That was never on my like things to do list.
The infinity pool does sound kind of cool though.
They are kind of neat, but I was in one, when I was CrossFitting, they would throw parties, and they would throw these parties that we could show off all our bodies.
Yeah, because you guys were all buff.
Dude, we were so ripped. I was so ripped. I was like the rippedest I've ever been when I was CrossFitting. It was insane. I loved me. I shaved my own chest.
What happens when a bunch of CrossFitting dudes get together and like, do you guys all still talk about CrossFit like you do everywhere?
100% talking about PRs. All the CrossFit talk.
Because whenever a CrossFit person is in a different group, that's all they talk about. So when you guys are together, does it just get like there's a circle jerk?
That's it. It's
like too intense.
It's awesome, and that's all we talk about. Well, anyway, so there was an infinity pool there, and I was in the pool, and I was feeling like a big shot, even though I was still living in my little Beachwood apartment. But I kind of had a little like height phobia out of it, which I never really get before. But I was like, wow, can I just like accidentally just
have you seen those videos
swim off the hill
of people who are on like floaties? No, not floaties.
That's what I'm
floaties
saying.
Are the run. What are they called? The rafts?
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, little blow up, fucking whatever.
Like an inflatable raft.
And they go over.
And the raft.
So it was like a legit phobia.
Yeah, it was legit. Well, if you're in the water, you're cool. But if you're on the water,
it didn't feel safe to me.
You could just go over the side.
Like those bridges that are glass, and you could fall
those bridges,
100% to your death. They just don't feel right?
Not for me.
It's
I'm staying on this side.
I'm not using Corningware to get across the bridge, bro.
That's the only way across? Okay, I'm staying then.
It's a Corningware bridge. You don't have to worry. It's Corningware. It doesn't break. It's Corningware.
It's Pyrex.
It's Pyrex. It's a Pyrex bridge. You'll be fine. Don't worry about it. You will not plunge to your death
Is it-
because it's a Pyrex bridge.
Is it capital letters Pyrex or lowercase letters Pyrex?
Well, is it old Pyrex or new Pyrex? Because the old Pyrex was definitely indestructible, but the new Pyrex, not so much.
it breaks.
Breaks.
Dr. Susan is I'm at 1800 Montgomery Street having crab cakes.
Oh, I love crab cakes. I could get grotesquely obese on those.
That's such a great thing to comment.
Wait, what's the thing you get from crab?
What do you mean
Gout?
the thing? What are you talking about?
If you eat too much shellfish, you can get gout, I think it's called.
Oh,
It's apparently very
isn't
painful.
it like there's like a mineral, like you'll get like a,
I heard if you just eat too much crabs, you get gout. Is that true? My mom used to like breathe heavily into the phone and tell me about it.
wait, is this ever an
I
issue?
get gout.
What kind of lifestyle do you have to actually worry about eating too much crabs?
I don't know.
What kind of
I don't know. Alaska.
How
if you're from Alaska.
fancy do you have to be like, oh, I'm eating too much shellfish?
Speaking of that, it's too much shellfish. I just read this silly thing, but it's true about like in this today. I learned somebody said that you could die from if all you had to eat was rabbit. You would die of starvation.
Of starvation?
Yeah. It's I guess probably technically like more of a malnutrition because there's not enough fats and
That's
all the
weird. I
different
thought that
balances.
rabbit was one of the most like nutrient dense.
You'd have to eat the brain.
What?
Yeah, you'd have
Wait a
to eat the
second.
brain to get the lipos.
Why are
or
you
something.
jumping down these rabbit holes?
Hey, dude.
Get it? Get
Hey,
it? Rabbit
hey,
holes? Get
The
it?
door was opened and I walked through the door.
No, but why are you reading? Oh, you're preparing for the apocalypse? Is that what's happening?
No.
You're like, should we farm rabbits or chickens or which one?
Speaking of the apocalypse, Rick Astley's Never Gonna Give You Up
Speaking of the apocalypse.
passes 1 billion Spotify streams. I wish I had.
Do we all get a prize for having to listen to it all
I
the
think I
time?
have to get a little soundboard or do something. I make like some fireworks or something when we do these ones.
Yeah, like a bunch of children cheering. That'd be fun.
Are you happy for Rick Astley?
Sure. Yeah. I'm sure he thinks it's the weirdest shit that ever could have happened to him. Because, he like, in hindsight, he's like, I mean, this song's not that great.
Oh, how I hated it in the 80s.
I know.
Like as soon as it came, I was like, I'm gonna give this up right away. I gave it up. But I like it now. You see how time changes things? I've been reading a lot, by the way.
By the way, you ruined Dr. Susan's dinner.
I did.
Yeah, because you started talking about what happens that you get sick if you eat too much crab. And she's like, okay, hang on, let me change my order real quick.
Excuse me, broccoli. I didn't mean to do that. Just
Dale,
don't eat too much of
there are
it.
consequences.
I have to think about it. It's true. Cosmic Urgency said he was that we might have convinced him when we were talking about Pee Wee as himself.
Yes.
The documentary that I highly recommend people watch if they have any interest in Paul Rubens and Pee Wee Herman, and
He's wonderful.
he is, and it was a good documentary. But that we in our back and forth about it had potentially convinced him not to see it. Isn't that fucking terrible? It's been weighing on me. I'm like, fuck, I got to take this serious because
Listen,
the last thing I want to do is like convince people not to see something, especially something I think they
I don't
should.
feel bad. If you're a true Pee Wee lover, that won't just
There's no barriers. They'd be like,
no.
it's like I couldn't tell Delicate not to see something Taylor Swift.
yeah, you're just gonna jump right in.
Like she would see it before me anyway, but she is for reals. Schwarzenegger tells environmentalists dismayed by Trump to stop whining and get to work. And that's bullshit because he said stop whining and get to work.
Well, you didn't say it exactly like that. Was
He
more
said
German.
get to work.
That's more German. You have to do Austrian.
Werk.
Stop whining. Get
Stop
to work.
whining. Get to work. Schwarzenegger tells the environmentalists to get to work, not work.
And don't get in the chopper.
It's fucking shabby ass reporting in this
The
country.
carbon footprint is too big. That was a bad joke. We're gonna edit that one out.
Okay. And trim. Trim. Frame. Which, by the way, yes, I hope to actually start producing content now because I think our sound is right. I think our picture is pretty decent, although I got to do a little more color work on you because you look great, but I need to do more color work there and whatever. So I'm getting there, and man, you guys' patience.
You're like
YouTube
Dr.
side,
Frankenstein.
TikTok side. You guys have been so kind and patient with us. as I try to figure out what the hell I'm doing. This all solo, and it's it's a lot to learn. At 55, you know what I mean? Hey,
Did you get my joke?
when I was what was it again?
You're like Dr. Frankenstein.
How? I didn't get that joke.
Because it's alive. Because you're making it. And it's alive.
So can women do dad jokes? Like, is that
Stop it.
is that a mom
You
joke?
know
Like,
what?
how do I do
You know
this?
what? I'm just going to leave.
You can't.
I'm not appreciated.
You're making me transition to solo?
No, I'm just going to leave.
Where are you going?
Where I'm appreciated.
Angela's left alive, guys. All right, well then I'm all alone here. So let me say this.
All right, I'm back.
Okay, welcome back.
I hope you learned your lesson.
I'm very upset about this. Jonathan Joss.
Oh, the police have put out a statement.
They got him. He confessed.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean? Is that what we're gonna get to?
No, the police put out a statement where they were like, I mean, they probably did not plan on having such a high-profile case on their hands.
Yeah.
But they're saying that so far in the investigation, they do not believe that it was a homophobic-based crime.
Well, the police say that, but the
But
husband is coming back with
Yes, I know.
wild story. Did
Yeah.
you hear about the house burning?
Yeah, well, that's what I told you about yesterday.
Right.
That's where I got that from.
Right.
But the police investigation is continuing, and so they're like, just put a pin in it. But so far, we are building charges that are different. I mean, the guy's obviously caught, and he's going to face justice for what he did. So whether it's a hate crime charge or not, I think is going to be a topic we're going to hear a lot about, because here in this Pride Month, a lot of organizations I think are going to be exploiting this news for whatever promotional purposes they have. And it's okay to do that, obviously.
Isn't it bizarre that it happens right
It's
around
not like some sort of
Pride Month?
exploitation. It's like, it's okay to do that because these are real issues that are that people face in these communities. So,
Yeah, I mean, just the more you read about it and the more you hear from his husband, whom he saved, whose life he saved, wild. It's just the whole story feels cinematic, and feels like there's something important in here in the story that is coming.
my whole opinion, every time I see that like hate crime charges or terrorism charges are brought, I always feel like it's not a good thing, because when we assume that somebody's guilty, right? And we're hoping that they face justice for what they've done and harmed a community, we really want the charges to stick. And so sometimes if you have these like elevated charges,
Yeah.
it's a higher burden of proof on the jury.
Yeah.
And so it really is risky. Sometimes these people could like get away with it if they're
Yeah.
not, if you
Kind
know,
of
they
what's
don't
going on
meet
with
the,
Karen Reed.
huh?
It's kind of what's going on with Karen Reed. You're trying to put murder 2 on somebody who you can't even pin the event on.
Yeah, she admits that she was at the scene. She admits that she was driving recklessly. She admits that she was under the influence of alcohol. They could have brought different charges, but they went with murder 2, and it just doesn't. I don't see any way that they could prevail. But like, in this guy in Texas, like if they bring hate crime charges, that's a higher burden of proof on the state.
Right.
So I don't feel like that really helps the victims.
Yeah.
It makes it a more sensationalized story that everybody can talk about and commune over what people in those communities deal with, but it doesn't really help us get justice. It just makes the whole process more complicated.
Yeah. I have a couple more things, and then we can get on to the Karen Reed trial, because I think that's really where the bulk of our life exists. Do you have anything other than Karen Reed for us today that we haven't already covered?
No, just, I wanted to talk about the Baldoni, Judge Lyman ruling. That's it.
I have 3 more things I think here. Yes, I have 3 more things. I never thought I would like Miley Cyrus, not because I disliked her as much as, first of all, like I always throw, and this is probably a fault to my character, but I always throw a bit of a skeptic's eye toward Nepo babies. I just do, it's just like, all right, you were born in the business, you got handed everything, and what'd you do with it? And so I'm always interested in that. And that's not to say that I haven't been fans of, kids born into whatever business. I think Jeff Bridges is a great example of a very successful Nepo baby, and his brother, both for that matter. And there's just so many of them. There's lots of people born in the business that do really well. But as I said, I just kind of always throw a little bit of a skeptic side. It's probably because I've got some kind of jealousy going on that I, can't fucking come to terms with, or whatever it is. But Miley Cyrus, she came out and said these things. She said that she doesn't have a makeup line because she's not a makeup artist. And she's like, I just don't, it's not her passion. And I just find this extremely heartwarming. And I love that she's coming out with this message of like, it veiled anti-capitalism. Do you know what I mean? Because, when Tom Brady was doing Subway commercials, you heard me raging in the apartment. You know what I mean? I was like, what the fuck is Tom Brady, who would never stick a Subway sandwich anywhere past his lips ever? The guy was like the most.
It's true.
Do you know what I mean?
Neil was in the apartment.
Freaking out about
watching some football game, right? And the stupid Tom Brady commercials are running every time. He's like, he doesn't even eat bread.
He doesn't fucking eat bread, and he's telling people to eat this. He doesn't believe in the product. He thinks the product is bad for you. It's like doctors saying, yeah, man, smoke Camels. Like, it's absurd.
That's really funny.
It's just so fucking outrageous, and it makes me hate capitalism.
Commercials really bend you out of shape sometimes.
Well, sometimes, celebrities do, when they're doing shit like that. When they like, I always get buggered up over celebrities because a lot of times celebrities take jobs away from people who could really use those jobs. Like Tom Brady doesn't need to be fucking taking that Subway money.
Oh yeah, Tina Fey talked about this on the Amy Poehler podcast, where she was talking about how she's always like really skeptical of celebrities with side hustles. She's like, what are you doing that for?
Yeah, exactly. Your fucking makeup line. So she said she doesn't have a makeup line because that's not her passion, and she also feels that way about motherhood. And so this is another situation where I feel, because there's a taboo about, and there's this like push to try and shame women and men, but women in particular, about motherhood, about, the choice, the conscientious choice not to be or participate in motherhood, which is a complete birthright. Like, I'm going to pass on this. I'm not going to have kids. And that, of course, for both men and women. And for me, I could have taken it or leaving it or left it. If we had a kid, but okay, great, let's stick a soother in its mouth and figure it out from here. And the same with my previous wife. I was never for or against. I was very Switzerland on the whole thing. Quite satisfied that I haven't had any though. Like, probably overjoyed, really, if I'm being honest about it. I've developed like sensitivity to loud things. And so I just love that she's speaking out, because I feel like not only is she being, just being passively anti-capitalist by talking about how she's just not going to take the money because she can, because that these manufacturers be all over her, making her Miley Cyrus line of whatever. She uses makeup, presumably. But that she's also standing up for women who want who should not be shamed because they don't feel like because they didn't want kids. Anyway, I just thought that was
Cosmic Urgency said Miley Cyrus
super solid.
Also said she didn't care about not making money off Spotify, and Taylor Swift came out talking about small artists getting screwed by Spotify's Team Taylor, or by Spotify's model.
Right.
Team Taylor. Guilty Angel says I can't stand Miley. Cosmic Urgency says I can't stand Miley Cyrus.
Yeah. And I'm not necessarily like saying I love Miley Cyrus at all. I just really like what she's saying here. In fact, I started this saying I never thought I would ever say that I liked Miley Cyrus, because, again, I've just always thrown a skeptic's eye. She was like really raunchy when she was coming up, which is like, whatever, who cares? So was Marilyn Manson. So was like, who cares? Whatever, musicians and artists have certain liberties, can take certain liberties when it comes to their expressions, I suppose. I certainly feel a certain amount of, forgiveness there, but like, or forgiveness, but there we go. I'm talking like I'm talking like an astrologer. Astrologers just make up fucking words. They just make up words out of the universe. They add a whole bunch of syllables to words that don't need to they just don't need to exist.
We watched a astrologers panel discussion where it was like 8 astrologers, and every single one of them was just like word mashing.
Yeah.
And it's funny because it is a really mercurial art form, we're all super wordy, like words, like symbols and words and meaning. And it's like, that's all, everything that we do.
Yeah.
So it just seems like the perfect group of people to just completely
Yeah.
go like off the deep end with the wordsmithing.
Well, listen, I just think that, I actually think that it's even more impressive when you don't like somebody or when you've never paid attention to them or think that they don't really offer much in the first place, which is really how I felt about Miley Cyrus. I didn't really think that she was, she offered really a whole lot other than her being raunchy and, playing this persona for fame and money. So I just find it quite encouraging that her comments seem so thoughtful and relevant in this.
Yeah, she's always been a straight shooter, right? I think that she's got that she has that like former Disney kid like problem where they have to go all the way the polar opposite of in their reinvention in order to like tear off the shackles of the Disney brand and turning, if they grow out of being like the kid performer and they actually want to be somebody with some artistic, something to say, then they have to make a big statement and then they can roll it back. And I think we've seen that a bunch of times. We saw that with Britney Spears, we saw that with Christina Aguilera. I don't think that it's any different. It's just like this pattern that they all have to sort of go through. It's almost like
a rite of passage in some way.
Yeah, like the myth of Inanna. They have to like you have to dive deep into the underworld and shed off everything that was your former self before you can reemerge a new person.
Yeah,
it's like the whole Venus retrograde story. I don't know. I just feel like it's a really predictable pattern. I'm not sure why people dislike her. I don't know if maybe I don't know if she's hurt somebody, if she's like been a vindictive person and harmed people. Then I would get on board with that. But if people just don't like her style or her fashion or her music, it seems like a weird reason to dislike somebody. Well, like she's obviously making art for somebody else. Like I'm not a fan.
Right.
But I kind of like that she's not, she obviously has enough media training to know how to answer questions and that she takes these more like, she's just like straight shooting. I think that that's admirable.
It's I guess what we see is it's interesting that you put it that way because like it feels like the way you put that it occurred to me then like like she's at this stage in life in her career and in her public persona that she understands the consequences of her words spoken publicly and her actions conducted publicly because she has changed the way she's behaving.
The first time she showed a bra strap on her shoulder was like a controversy.
Right.
So she has a very, very close and intimate understanding of how her words can affect her public perception. She knows all about reputation. All of these child stars do. Like it sucks for them that they have to grow up in this life, but that's the training they get. And so she's just I think it's rad what she's doing. I really like that she's reached this new era where she's like happily single, living life on her own terms, and she doesn't give a shit. That she's said like a big fuck you to all of her family members that she's had disagreements with. She's
on talking terms with the big man.
Yeah, right. But she's very open about that. She's like, I don't know. I just think it's interesting.
Do you think she hangs out with her new mother-in-law?
I don't spend a lot of time thinking about Miley Cyrus, but you brought it up.
Neither do I. A part of what I like to do when we do these lives topically is to try to like touch on things that like when I read them, if they affect me in any way that I think is worth talking about, because I think that there's something worth talking about, whether it's funny or poignant or whatever, I bring it up.
Yeah, no, it's good.
And I just thought that she did something good there, and I hope that the people that listen to her hear these words. This is she's not talking to me, but to whomever she is talking, I hope they're listening. I guess you could say. A couple more things. First of all, we just to touch on Diddy. I'm not big on this following this in too much depth, just because I find it just literally so repulsive. I really think that it's just evil. But a couple of things have happened that are always worth talking about. And when I say evil, it's like there's a certain things I feel like I'm stronger to turn away from than I am to look at.
I know. I feel the same way. When they're cross-examining. When his defense team is cross-examining Cassie, and their whole strategy is being like, but you actually really loved it. You actually really, really liked the way he treated you.
Right.
And we're going to show the jury all these text messages where you were fawning over your captor,
Yeah.
Like, honestly, I don't really want to tune in.
It's just that there's a darkness to these kinds of cases that like there's just some things that like, you know, like the lively dispute, the you know, Depp v. Heard, like these are more, you know, I don't know, chompy. But this Diddy one, it just feels like if I stay around too long, demons might, you know, attach to my soul or something. But a couple of things did come up. First of all, there is a woman who has filed lawsuit against Diddy, and I think she's also testifying in the criminal proceeding, who was a model, a gorgeous model, who was abused by Diddy and by Harvey Weinstein. She is suing both of them. And it just, man, like the weight of what it means, or at least what it meant, but it probably isn't all that different. There's another Diddy or Weinstein somewhere in Hollywood doing something. And it just got me thinking about like how difficult it is to be whatever Hollywood calls gorgeous in a woman, and be in Hollywood and be alone with men and be recommended to men and to sit around with men. And it does make me think about every time I've ever been around women, completely unaware of really what it, especially beautiful women, so-called beautiful women, I'll say, that and what they're up against, like what they're doing. Like this woman, like I mean, I consider myself lucky and unlucky, profoundly lucky and unlucky in Hollywood. And I look at this woman and I think of the profound misfortune to have that level of exposure to two of what have to be, two of the most
notorious
monsters in Hollywood history.
Yeah, it's horrific.
Like the trauma of that is just actually crazy.
What you're saying made me think of an episode of the Man Enough podcast with Justin Baldoni, where he was talking with, I think it was the episode that Emily Baldoni was guesting on, was that he brought her on, and he was talking with Liz Plank, his co-host, about Justin Baldoni and Jamie Heath were sitting there talking about how women are just much better communicators. And the women on the panel had to remind the men that women are not like born with the skills of communication, but they actually have to learn how to navigate men so early. Like as soon as I remember
dodging triggers,
dude,
noticing patterns, figuring out how to navigate it,
reading somebody's face and body
at home,
language.
At school, at work, wherever the fuck you guys have to go, you've got to figure your way through it because there is a fucking jungle. It's just crazy to me.
It's not that we're like somehow better at communicating, it's that we need to be, because we're constantly
you're adept at it.
We're being challenged so much more often.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that men don't have their own challenges. Like, I've never been bullied by my friend group like dudes are. Like, you guys get the shit kicked out of you by other boys all the time.
Men are deleting themselves at higher rates than women for a reason. Men have their own unique set of problems.
But there's a bunch of like social navigating that requires like really perceptive, like cue discernment. Like there are really tiny, almost imperceptible social cues that women learn to read really early to navigate the men in their vicinity, I
always go back to that story where I was hanging out with my friend and I was completely insensitive to the trouble, to the weight of what women have to bear in terms of the threat of men, any men generally, just the threat of men. And I never understood it. I never understood it because, like, to me, as a man, I've never felt that. I never felt
that's
the weight
so weird because obviously you did. You got beat up as a kid by other dudes.
Yes, I did, but so what was convincing from her was this. She said, she made it clear, like, you don't know what it's like to walk at night down a street and see a figure that you know to be a man and immediately fear for your life. And while there's some truth that I've experienced some kind of fear when it comes to the potential of an adversarial actor on the road somewhere, I felt this. Women have much more to deal with. Women, like, one of the
That's kind of like a really extreme example, and that's why it's such a simple one to offer people. But
it changed
what
the
what this
way I've seen
what
things.
this topic of conversation has made me think of more is about like the, like how Baldoni's saying that women are better communicators. What he's talking about is that like every social interaction, whether somebody approaches you on the street in broad daylight, like nothing threatening is happening, but they approach you on the street to ask for directions or something, you have to like quickly do risk assessment of this person and like watch them very closely.
Right.
Like, is this person a threat to me?
Yeah.
Or like if a dude in the, like a coworker, right, in your workplace approaches you alone and asks like for some help with some task, or like, will you look over this fucking document or whatever?
Right.
Like you have to sort of assess whether your proximity to them means something different to them than it does to you. Like you have to sort of like.
But there's also the fear. There's also the
intuit.
fear of like, what is this guy like when he's mad? Like what makes him mad?
Yeah, there's the navigating when you have to disappoint somebody. Like if somebody asks for your number and you don't want to give it to them, like that's a huge challenge. It's like.
It's frightening. Truly.
Yeah.
Do you want to take some questions?
Annoying more than anything.
There's TikTok has been busy. Let me see. On O Diddy says Dr. Susan.
Cosmic Urgency said, "This is the new Man Enough podcast." Dale's gonna grow out his hair and do
I'm gonna get a fucking
man bun.
I'm gonna get a man bun. Yeah. What? I gotta get like super good looking. Is what
I just love how bent out of shape he got from being made fun of for his man bun. It's like, dude, that was a choice.
You
like
put it on.
Like you knew it was a whole look.
You looked in the mirror. You cared enough to make that happen. Me with a man bun. The most I ever did was grow my beard out, as some of you witnessed, and that just was because I chose not to cut it off.
Cosmic Urgency said, "I don't know. My experience with women is they expect you to be psychic. Maybe that's women that you're in a relationship with, but we were just talking about people in more like casual encounters, like like just encounters. And I think that's what they were talking about."
Yeah, I don't know if I've experienced quite the same thing as far as women.
Cosmic Urgency is saying, "I found out I'm a Capricorn with Virgo rising.
Oh.
Do I get along with you?" Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a Capricorn sun, and Angela's Virgo rising.
Yeah, so if you're a Virgo rising, your Capricorn sun is in your 5th house, which is a wonderful.
You sound very Virgo rising. I'm not gonna lie. I know that's such a cliche, tropey thing to say, but like you do. You're very candid.
Yeah, and really quick-witted, which is
quick-witted.
Mercury all the way.
Yeah, you're ruled by your rising sign is ruled by Mercury. Did you say? Yeah, you said Virgo rising.
Okay,
yes,
here's your prescription. Okay, Cosmic Urgency, because your sun is in Capricorn in the 5th house. You can more easily connect with your sense of purpose if you do creative, like joyful, like pleasurable.
It's Capricorn in the 5th.
Capricorn in the 5th.
Yeah.
The way that you do your artwork or whatever it is you do, right? In order to like do creative expression, it's going to be very organized and it's going to be very regimented, and you probably have like long projects that you really need to stick to.
Well, the problem actually is because it's cardinal. So when you take cardinal and you mix it with mutable sign, it might be there might be a lot of starting of different projects, like a lot of that.
Yes,
a lot of like start.
Virgo risings have this issue.
Well, and Capricorns are cardinals, so that's what they do. They're
initiators.
They're initiators, and so if you take those two, it might be that you're like real easy at starting things, and maybe it might be a little more difficult for you to actually to actually finish them. Although you might be able to get quite creative with the way in which you create structures around achieving these goals.
Yeah, so, in fact, organizing your creative expressions, like your art projects or whatever that you do, organizing it in a way in which you can teach others is definitely going to make you happy.
Yeah.
But the sun, where the sun is placed, is usually a place where you can really connect with your sense of purpose if you go and pursue those things. And the 5th house is like one of the coolest, funnest houses. It's all joy, pleasure, and it's because it's below the horizon. From 1 through 7, 1 through 6 is below the horizon. That means it's all about you. So you don't have to do this work for anybody else. It's all just like you puttering around with your little hobbies and whatever makes you happy. And that's gonna help open up this whole new, like, how am I gonna shine in the world, right? That's what the sun wants to show.
By the way, when we jam about like general astrology like this, just so you know, it's super general because we don't know what's aspecting your 5th house. We don't know where Saturn is. We don't know if it's a day or night chart. We don't know where Mercury is and what it's aspecting its relationship with malefics.
Yeah, you could have a bunch of planets shitting on your chart. We don't know.
Yeah, so we don't like, so everything we're saying is with a grain of salt of like that could all be like trashed by like really bad malefic aspects to either the ruler of your fifth house, which would be Saturn, or any planets that are already there.
Also, you're because
or also
you're,
to your first house,
because your
Mercury.
sun is below the horizon. That means that you were born at night, and so your moon is your primary luminary. So you really want to find out where your moon is to really direct you more than your sun.
The last thing I have before we get on to Karen Read,
Yes,
is it's kind of sad, but it's also kind of interesting, and I just wanted to share it with you guys in case there's anybody around here that plays video games or thinks about playing video games, but especially any kind of person who might enjoy a video game that is like really puzzle based and crazy post. I subscribe to many of the subs on Reddit, gaming subs. And particularly Steam Deck, because I own a Steam Deck, and I love it. It's a great place to be. It's great to be able to just play it wherever I am. And this person wrote, "What to play before I die," a Steam Deck story. And
this is heartbreaking. Read the whole thing.
It's this story. This kid. I'm not going to read the whole story but this kid, this young man, had cancer. It went into they believed it went into remission. He had several surgeries and chemo and did the whole thing. And he thought he went into remission, and then however long later, however much time had passed, he got this really strong pain in his stomach. He went to the doctor. They ran all the scans, and he has terminal cancer. He's going to pass, and he's got months to live, and he wants to play. He's like, so what game should I play before I die? And I just think this is like a super powerful moment for two reasons. First of all, I think it's like a wild thing to, like, I don't know, it just kind of slapped me up in the head. As you know, I have a certain fascination around death and the death of loved ones and the pain and grieving that accompanies all that. And I don't know, there's whatever fascination I have with that.
I do too. I just think that it's such a taboo thing in our culture that it makes it so much more interesting. You know, you got to dig around for information about how that goes on your own, because nobody wants to talk about it, which makes it more interesting.
I mean, as a writer, I like to kill my characters, and I like to do it. I especially like to kill them off, like especially the ones I love the most. And I like to kill them off in ways that,
where you see how your other characters deal with the grief.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's a really big thing. Is like, how people deal with grief. Which is a weird thing, because when you get into a deep depression and you get into ideation, it's very easy to spend a lot of your time imagining people reacting to your past, and that sort of became a pastime of my actually turning that into writing for characters that are passing and the grieving of others, and through that was my solace that if I were to expire, like, the world would care. It's kind of a weird thing. It's kind of like what you cling to when you're that depressed is like the idea that people want you alive, and so you have to stay alive for them. Is like this weird psychology. I've digressed into this because I do want to get to the point, which was that this person asked for such a serious question, and like the respondents, they did not take it lightly. They responded, and emphatically the response. So an entire gaming community really converged on this question, and on this poor unfortunate situation. But they made a recommendation, an emphatic recommendation.
Okay.
So this is the recommendation of the game that you should play before you die. If you play any games, this is the game. Somebody said, "What's the book I should read before I die?" Pay attention, because maybe it's that good. Pay attention to this if you have any interest in games. It's called Outer Wilds. And it's very important that you don't. There's another game that's very similarly named, so it's important that it's Outer Wilds, 2 words, and when you read the comments about people's reaction to it, they're like, you don't understand what you're about to experience. And by the way, what they say about this, and this is very important. This would be especially true for you if you had any interest in this, Angela, because you're one who likes to dig. They're like, the least you know, the better. You have to just go in blind and as stupid as possible. to truly experience what this game is like. So there you go. I've revealed to you this. I think this is profound and
What
beautiful.
were they saying about it? Oh, I'm not supposed to know anything?
Yeah,
You're supposed to go in blind?
I'm not going to I'm not going to spoil it beyond saying that it was the emphatic. Again, by a very.
So did you get it?
Oh, I've had it for a while, and this is the wildest thing. I tried to play it, and I was like, "What the fuck is this?" And I stopped. And then there's a guy who commented. So I'll go as far as to say this.
Wait, why'd you stop? You were bored
Yeah,
or
it was
frustrated?
like, I can't remember exactly, but it was a combination of losing his things that lost my interest. But this guy was like, "You just have to keep going through it." Because eventually, because it's one of these games that you just got to find your way into it.
This poor terminal patient, he's like, I only have so much time.
100% I'm going to play it now. Because I couldn't believe how much this crowd. Well, anyway, so that's my second last thing. Maybe it should have been my last thing before we get into the trial.
Dale, do you think that Leo is involved in all the Diddy stuff? Because I recently came across this interview of Scorsese's daughter saying Leo was like an uncle. I don't know what those two have to do with each other.
Well, yeah, because one can be an uncle and then one can also be a bad person. Just ask, serial killers who spend all their time, spent so many years raising children and doing whatever else.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I do think that Leonardo DiCaprio was involved with Diddy. I think the record is clear that he was. I think that Diddy was not saying that he was the number one guest at his party just to send out a warning to him. I think he was saying that because it was true. I also think that Leonardo DiCaprio has a history of hanging out with questionable people. Not just Diddy, Danny Masterson, Harvey Weinstein. Those are just a couple more. So, and these are people that, he hung out with, that I heard him use the words friends or, close relations with. So, that's sort of my take on that. That's not an indictment on him in terms of what he did or didn't do. I don't know what Leonardo DiCaprio did or what he didn't do, but I will say this, that on everybody's lips was Leonardo DiCaprio when it came to Diddy. On everybody's lips was Jay-Z, was Beyonce, was Kevin Hart, was LeBron James. And I'm just pointing out that these are the biggest of the biggest. These are the biggest names in all of their respective fields: sports, music, Hollywood. And none of them, not one of them, has been brought up since, by the way, there was this circulation of a story that the big Hollywood names were burying everything.
Oh, of course
and that they
are.
were buying all the tapes, that they were buying up all the tapes,
mm-hmm.
and that they were burying everything. And that to me, I believe that to me means, at least, by the way, this is just my opinion and for entertainment purposes only, at least begs the criticism, the skepticism that these people were deeply involved. So you know who else was a sexual one of the most biggest sexual scandals involving the biggest people in the world. None of them have been held accountable. Not one person, where children were the victims, right? Epstein, right? Highest profile list of clients ever, right? Royalty, literal royalty, royal family. Donald Trump, current president. Not one of them, not one single fucking one of them have been held accountable, have been held to account. Not one of these motherfuckers, not one. So do I think Leonardo DiCaprio was a part of it? I do, yeah. And I think he's covered it up. Listen, I'm stepped on and limited. Look at it I have a fucking crazy story. It's a crazy story. And when you read it, it's we just had somebody who graciously stopped by and congratulated me on the book and the quality of the read it is. But a part of what makes it such a great read isn't just the fact that I'm a decent writer, but also that the story's fucking outrageous and crazy to read. It's a crazy story. Honestly, the book should be blowing up right now because it's A, quality writing, and B, a crazy good story. Those two things, when come together, usually equate to a hit, or at least something that does well. If not a hit, something that has a good run. I can barely sell a book right now. I can barely sell a fucking book. And the reason is because I can't, every single press that comes toward me, they stop. And they stop frozen cold. I've had huge documentary directors, like, and by huge I mean these people are working and building some of the best and most popular documentaries for streamers like Netflix and so on. Come to me, they want to do a documentary on this story of mine and of ours, and they get stopped dead in their tracks as soon as they take it to the next level, which is pitching it to the brass. So these fuckers, they go in and they use their money and their influence, and they escape justice.
It's true. We've heard from several writers who work at big magazines, and we're super excited to work with them. And they start creating a story, and they do an interview with Dale, and then when it comes to the phase of taking it to their editors of the magazine, they have to come back and be like, "Oh yeah, sorry, we can't run that because it's got DiCaprio."
That's right.
So
I literally have an email from a journalist who wrote for Vanity Fair, who did the article I did an interview for Vanity Fair, who in the email confesses, I guess you could say, or at least tells me that that the whole article was interfered with by Leonardo DiCaprio, and that's why it was the shit article that it was, rather than the one that he had promised he was writing, which was the story that was true, right? The true story behind what happened to Don's Plum, who destroyed it and why, was what that article was supposed to be. And it became something completely different and otherwise misrepresented to me, and why I sat for the interview in the first place, because we agreed on what the article was supposed to be. And this is not the first time I was fucked over in the New York Post documentary. Uh-huh. So the idea that that Leonardo DiCaprio and LeBron James and Beyonce and Jay-Z and Kevin Hart and all of the biggest dudes in the world in their respective fields, none of them, not one of them, were there when the line got crossed. I don't believe it for a second.
Yeah, they have really excellent lawyers and excellent publicists that craft the narrative of everything we see about them. So there's you'll even see sometimes like a negative story that is like purposefully put out. Justin Baldoni did that, and his publicist, there's evidence of his publicist orchestrating a deliberately negative story so that it would change the narrative from this other negative story they wanted to bury.
Right. Erica says, it's crazy that Leo has so much powerful. He's a creep and everybody knows it. Well, here's what's interesting about that, Erica, is like, look, it's not Leonardo DiCaprio. He's just one thing that all these other things have gathered around. And these other things are super rich corporations. They're movie studios.
Yeah, like the Malaysia Fund.
The Malaysia
How
Fund.
the fuck did he ever have access to a nation's fund?
So it's not Leonardo DiCaprio being powerful is the point that's important here. It's important for you guys to realize is that Leonardo DiCaprio is powerful by virtue of all the things that he represents and carries along with him. So first of all, he especially when he was less controversial, he was the guy to know in Hollywood. Like if you got seen with Leonardo DiCaprio, you were seen with the hippest dude in the town, right? He was the biggest star, the most beloved star, America's greatest living actor, whatever you want to call it. None of which I believe is actually true in my own world, but hey, I'm just me. So people wanted to associate, they wanted to hitch their wagon to that, horse. So it's all these combination of things that makes Leonardo DiCaprio so-called powerful. We make him powerful when we adore him, right? So we give him, that's all of his power. Like his power evacuates.
Evaporates?
Okay, evaporates. I'll say it evacuates. The reason I was using the word evacuate is because it literally is installed by people. And if people decide that it's no more, it evacuates. So, but it evaporates can be can certainly work and probably does work better.
Sorry,
Miss Editor.
I was just confused. That's all. It's not important.
You see what I'm saying, though? So, it's so complicated. It's so
Dr.
fucking
Susan said
complicated.
she's sad about it. Says, I'm feeling that's all of Hollywood right now. That responding to Erica's, he's a creep and everybody knows it.
Yeah, it's not though. The cool thing is it's not all of Hollywood. The problem is that it's so many powerful people in Hollywood, and so that they it's like it's the same thing as like people hating Americans because they don't like Donald Trump.
Yeah, it's exactly the same.
Yeah.
It's a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
Because Dale and I both lived in Hollywood for 20 years.
Yes.
And we knew a bunch of people who were performers and trying to make it in Hollywood. And those people were a lot more connected than I was, and so they knew people, and I sometimes hung around in peripheral circles. And like they're all really fucking great people. And
For sure.
all they want to do is just be creative
Yeah.
and collaborate with each other and make some money sometimes maybe. Like
Speaking of
they're nice people.
yeah, speaking of nepo babies, Angelica Houston, right? I talk about
Right.
ones that were so awesome. I had a chance to party with her one night. She threw a party for her husband, who was a sculptor. He's now passed, but he was a sculptor, and so she threw a show and a dinner. And I got invited in through this like link to Christian Slater, and it was pretty weird, kind of perfect little evening for me. And I got to spend this night with this woman who wasn't only an icon in Hollywood, or is a Hollywood icon and an Oscar winner, but also somebody who was born into the business, literally born right in from birth. And she was just amazing. I mean, this woman was like, I felt touched by her. You know what I mean? Like in a and by that I mean, it sounds a little bit weird. Like,
I think we know what you mean.
I've had the privilege of being able to work with or be around people who've accomplished extraordinary things, whether it's Leonardo DiCaprio or Shunji Ibero in our jiu-jitsu, whether it's my yoga teachers or Angelica Houston. I've just had this privilege. And
That's what you get to have when you live in Los Angeles.
It's one of the privileges of living.
Sometimes
in
you
LA.
only find out later after you've known somebody for a little while how absolutely well connected they are. in your life.
Iconic they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're by vast majority, most people are really, really kind, hardworking, and they really want to help others accomplish their goals too.
Yeah.
It's just all it takes is just a few monstrous fucking snakes to just make everything harsh for everybody else.
It's so annoying. You want? Yeah, I know we have a few more questions here, so we should get through them for sure. Because I know there was a bunch on. I think there was like.
Dr. Susan said, "I have a decade of content on death and dying. Really rough stuff."
Yeah, you know what's so interesting about death and dying? So Angela and I, we fell down a rabbit hole.
If you want to drop some book recommendations, I'd love that.
Yeah, we fell down a rabbit hole. Rabbit hole was like.
Near-death experiences.
Near-death experience. They were death experiences. I mean,
Yeah.
nearly finalized as death, but like people who come back from dead. And we're not talking about people who like flatlined for like a few seconds. We're talking about people who are like gone for minutes, if not even in some cases more than an hour. And they were revived. And Jeremy Renner, which I think I brought this up on this live.
Is his book out, or is he just promoting a
I don't know, but he's
soon?
coming out with a book now. And if you don't know this. This past Christmas, was it this past Christmas? It was the year before that.
No,
it
he took a long time to recover.
It was like whatever. He was out. They had a snowstorm, and he got this like a big giant industrial sized like blower,
A snowplow,
and he ended up getting injured, like nearly.
He was trying to plow a way for his
Neighbors.
friend or relative or neighbor. I don't know.
I think it was his neighbor, but
to
okay.
leave.
Yeah.
And then he ended up needing to save somebody from the snowplow. Somehow there was some horrible accident that he tried to prevent, and he got run over by a snowplow.
Yeah, so he ended up in a critical. He had a near-death experience.
It was heroism. He was a hero.
And so Jeremy Renner, he just spoke about it in the same way that most of the people on these near-death experience on the show that we saw, I think it was on Netflix. And that is that it was just absolutely like the best feeling ever, that he didn't want it to end, that he didn't want to return from it, that it was perfect peace. It was beautiful and serene. And I mean, pure happiness and joy. Like, here's the thing that might be true. That death might be like the pinnacle moment, not the end, the greatest moment. It's the greatest moment of this life. It might be our death.
You know, the longest lasting takeaway from watching those shows with you
Yes.
was that I feel pity for people who feel so disconnected. Like usually, sometimes people will like pursue, spirituality or whatever religious development will lead them to this feeling of how we're all connected, that the world is all like one living thing and we're all reliant on everything and everyone.
Yeah.
Sometimes people will achieve that in their lifetime. Other times, these people who to speak about this overwhelming knowing that they get once they've crossed over, right?
Yeah.
And then they end up coming back, understanding that we're all connected.
Yeah.
So anytime I hear somebody like just like ranting about their xenophobia or something online, I'm like, God, it's such a shame that you don't get it. Like, you don't get it. Maybe you will on your deathbed. Maybe you'll actually achieve this understanding before then, but not at this rate. You know?
We have a 2 real book compliment interruption that we have to cut to. This person is called Hey. I'm bad at names.
Where is it?
It's on TikTok. Hey. I'm terrible.
Hey, it's Addie.
Hey, it's Addie.
Yes, I also read the book and literally could not put it down. It was so good.
Is that cool? Thank you so much.
That's what we wanted. We did it.
Excited.
Okay, do you want to segue?
I have one more thing.
Okay.
Thank you for reading the book. Leo Edit said I love Too Real. Thank you for reading the book so much. I just can't thank you enough. I really can't. I know that there are a million books by people far better than me at the craft.
Don't talk like that for too long because it ends up getting a little overwhelming.
I don't want to throw you into an existential crisis, but I know what it means to read a book and how big of a deal it is, and I'm so glad that you enjoyed it. I wrote long and hard to try to make that happen, so I'm thrilled. The last thing I have a soft spot for Brian Wilson.
Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys?
Yeah, I have a really big soft spot for him.
I think that's fair.
And obviously he's a giant innovator, genius, all this other stuff. But I feel like, he was somebody who, he was like, maybe he was on the spectrum or whatever it was.
Yeah.
But
maybe.
That like he was taken advantage of, that, all the bad shit that we hear about Hollywood and some of the stuff that I had to live through in Hollywood, that Brian Wilson had to live with this in some of the worst ways. Like when he was under that conservatorship, that guy was abusing him, like physically abusing him, mentally abusing him. All the things that this man has been through and gone through. Coming up? I got some Brian Wilson news. I just want to, it's just some stuff that I showed up in a headline that's well upvoted on Today I Learned, and I just there's something that really felt good about it, and I poked around it a little bit, and so I just want to share my feelings about Brian Wilson. So in this Today I Learned, it said Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys was psychologically scarred by his failure to complete Smile, the band's follow-up to Pet Sounds. And
that must have been hard.
And after he premiered the finished album in 2004, now just think about like who we're talking about here.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about Brian, Wilson. We're talking about like 60s.
Yeah.
In 2004, this thing has been with him since the 60s. And this is like when people say, don't give up. And sometimes it drives you a little crazy because you watch the award shows, and most of the awards, they go to these people who are like 30 or below, and then they've got this story about not giving up. Do you know what I mean? And it's just like, well, you're still in it,
Yeah.
Sonny, what haven't you given up on yet?
So he never gave up, and he finished it in 2000.
Here's a guy who had it all, ostensibly, or at least, from others' perspectives, I guess, from the outside looking in, this guy had it all. But he had this like real hole in his heart, and this whole artistic hole in his heart for this thing, Smile, this record, Smile, follow-up to Pet Sounds. After he premiered it and finished the album in 2004, to a 10-minute, oh, God, I just got struck by it. I get emotional, a 10-minute standing ovation. I told you I have a soft spot for this fucking human being.
Yeah, that's great.
It's like Orson Welles. Like there are these artists out there who
Yeah.
who I know had to fight every, you know. I gotta fight, you know.
So he got a standing ovation.
Yeah, I'm sorry. What's hitting me is he's rocking back and forth on the stage.
Is he happy?
Sorry, I'm collecting myself. So he rocked back and forth on stage, and he exclaimed to his bandmate, "We did it!"
Sweet.
2004, man.
That's awesome.
From fucking 1960, what, 1970. Sorry about that. I just love this. This is a triumph to me.
Is he still with us?
These are different. These are different ways that we see and we get to witness greatness. Like, when we watch greatness in things like sports, we get to see things like, whatever, Patrick Mahomes or now Jalen Hurts or whomever it may be. We get to see these amazing athletes do these amazing things. There was like the big, when Jordan played with the flu and won the championship and his 3 in a row and Shaq's 3 in a row and all the different, we get to see these big achievements and they're amazing and they truly are remarkable. I'm a big sports fan because I understand what it means to physically do what these guys have done, because I've tried just for a minute to be an athlete. What they've done is extraordinary in every single way, and we don't really get to see those kinds of things as much especially when we're looking at people who've already had such great success, somebody like Brian Wilson.
This whole story is for Cosmic Urgency because he said, how do I get to the end? That's my problem totally. So many started projects, tons of notes, and I can't stop.
Oh, look at you! See how we see astrology, bro. I can. You know what? We should have a chat. Some kind of reach out to me by email or something.
I mean, specifically for Cosmic Urgency.
Yeah.
With he's talking about his son in his fifth house.
He's just talking about being a Virgo
Capricorn in
with
the fifth
Capricorn
house.
In the fifth. Yeah.
That is the challenge.
Yeah.
That's the challenge for you. You'll reach, that reward if you. I mean, this is with everything, right? So it's not like just isolated to you, but the Capricorn is always challenging you to stick to it and reach the top, and that's where the reward is. But the reward that you get from it is nothing that can be taken away, because what you learn is how to be a more mature, the sort of person who finishes things.
Let me put it this great analogy, because it just popped into my mind. But it's a lot like video games were in the old days, or like they are now in many respects with these Souls games and so on and so forth. And that is that you're going through and you're playing the game, and then you die, and then you get sent back to the beginning, and it feels like starting over. But you're not starting over.
Yeah, because you know how things work.
Because you know how things work. And you'll go back and you'll fuck it up again. You'll go back and then you'll start over again. So you just have to be willing to understand that you're never actually resetting anything ever, that you are progressing. And you also have to give yourself permission to not progress, you have to be okay with, you have to come to terms with, you have to reconcile with unfinished projects. I have them, you have them, we're all going to have them. And you have to be patient with your process. You have to trust yourself. You have to trust in the Saturnian strength of a process. You have to allow the process and believe in it.
You're supposed to develop diligence, right? And the reward is, because it's your fifth house, this is going to be very pleasurable for you, right? So they're going to be rewards that you get to really enjoy. It's going to be joyful. Yeah. It's going to be creative expression. It's going to be... Sometimes it's like love and harmony and children and child rearing, where you get to like actually play, So these are the sort of things that you get as a reward for sticking with it. But you also should consider, this is also Capricorn's skill, is discerning whether it's worth it. So if you're talking about hobbies and never finishing anything, does it really fucking matter? Like, I have a bunch of hobbies, and sometimes I don't finish stuff, but the process is enjoyable, and that's the point.
It's always going to matter if you truly want to finish. If you really like, there's, I mean, I don't know exactly specifically what you're talking about, obviously, Cosmic, but I do know that, like, for me, if there's something not finished, like
Sometimes finishing doesn't matter.
it aches for me. Like I'll sit and I'll
well,
just
because
always
what you
be
do are
thinking
writing
about them.
projects, and so they need to be finished if they're going to be, a thing.
Greatest thing that ever happened to me was that I wrote a book, and the reason was because it was the first time that as a writer I got to actually finish something other than Dawn's Plum.
Right.
Because when you write screenplays, you're a screenwriter, you're in a perpetual state of incompleteness until the movie actually gets made.
Painful.
So it's super painful. All you do is you write this script. You think it's the greatest thing ever because you're supposed to. You have to believe in yourself. No one else will. And yet you can't get it made, or people aren't seeing it the way you are. And so it lays there sort of dead on a shelf. But with writing a book, doesn't matter who reads it, who likes it, who loves it, if it fails or if it succeeds. What matters is that you get to finish it. There's a certain amount. There's a massive reward, particularly in Saturnian-based creatures like Capricorns and Aquarians, and even in the exalted sense Librans. You have there's a massive reward that awaits the endeavorer who is willing to go through all of the pain, the obstacles, the whatever it is.
For these
to get
people,
to that
the
very
struggle,
important end.
the struggle is the point.
Yes.
Right? You're being trained. So accept your training, go through the training, and you'll be rewarded with the outcome that is, benefits you. But the thing is, it's like, you just have to be discerning from the start. Like, if we're talking about paintings, like, dude, just hang the unfinished painting. Like, nobody gives a shit. There aren't any rules, But you have to decide. Another thing about Virgo risings is that we have to practice discernment about what we want to apply our Mercury, focus on, right? Like, if you're tormenting yourself because you haven't finished a painting, just hang the fucking thing up. It's done. Take it back down and work on it later if you want, but don't worry.
It's gonna work for some, not work for others.
You know what I mean?
For me, I can never do it like that because I'd be like, the painting is not done.
It doesn't matter. You have to decide whether it matters or not.
That's my point.
Well, that's the thing. Is like, as a Virgo rising, you're gonna have a million projects. You just have to learn how to let it go. Be cool with yourself. We hold ourselves to high standards that do not need to happen. It doesn't need to.
Everyone, thank you for liking the live, and please like and subscribe if you're on YouTube and you haven't yet. I really do appreciate that. As soon as we get to 500 followers on YouTube, I'm going to give away 5 US-based shipped signed books of Too Real. I haven't figured out how I'm going to do that yet, so we'll figure it out.
Do you have an email that you offer to people out in the world?
For what?
To reach you?
Yeah, freedomsplummit. Gmail is fine.
Okay. Guilty Angel is asking, can you confirm your email real quick?
Yeah, freedawnsplum@gmail.com will
also,
work great.
We've been invited to dinner in LA.
Yeah, well, next time we're in LA, I'm taking you up on that, even though I'll be sitting there with the mask watching you eat.
I bet it'd be fun, though.
But I'd love to hang out with you. That'd be so fun. What we do is go out for drinks, where I also won't drink.
You can get a little, they have masks with a little valve.
Yeah.
Right? So you just open your little trap door and it's got a straw hole.
Yeah.
And you close your little trap door.
I'm so touched by all the book love tonight.
I know,
Thank you so
great.
much for all that. That is really fun for me.
Okay, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Ellen Worth was with us. I don't know if she still is.
Okay.
On TikTok.
Hi, Ellen.
Seriously, how probable is it that John O'Keefe went into that house and got murdered 1 minute after?
I think it's highly probable, but I think it might have been accidental. I don't know if it was murdered as much as slaughtered by accident, negligent homicide. Or negligent manslaughter or whatever. So something unintentional.
Okay, so this is a pivot to the Karen Read trial.
I don't think there was a setup murder here. I think there was there was a dog that jumped on a guy.
That's what happens.
Who fell back, hit his head, and died.
Ellen Worth was saying, how probable is it that John went into that house and got murdered 1 minute after? Well, it is extremely probable that he went into that house drunk as shit, because he was drunk as shit that night, and was like, hey, what's up, boys? And freaked out the dog, and the dog lunged at him because the dog is obviously dealing with an intruder.
Well, and the dog is already reputationally...
Yeah, the dog is bad
bad with strangers, attacks strangers.
That's right. And so
they
they
routinely would put the dog away in a separate room, locked away, which is the correct way to do that.
It might have been that he walked through a door that he shouldn't have walked through, because that's where the dog was. We don't know because the if that's the crime scene, it was never investigated. If it was an accident, he got like lunged at by a dog, and because he's super drunk, he lost his footing and he fell back and he hit his head.
Yeah.
Then it is very probable that the exact same time that Karen Read was backing up her car to turn around, that he was actually losing his life inside that house, and she was completely it was unknown to her.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think it's strange it's not too much of a coincidence, because what the prosecution hasn't explained is why there wasn't a more robust investigation in the location that who was the last person to see him alive, that Karen Read saw John entering. So if any other circumstance where, the victim isn't a cop and it isn't Canton PD, which has a long history of being really fucking shady.
Oh my God,
it's crazy.
Well, we're going to get into this.
The jurors aren't even seeing all of these other weird things that Canton PD is involved in.
I'll tell you, though, that what they have seen is compelling.
In any other situation, you would think that the last known place that the person walked in and then they were later found deceased, that place would be investigated.
Yep.
And it wasn't. It wasn't in this case. And I just... What's the explanation? So let's get into today's trial then, shall we? Yes.
So today we started on the Karen Baker trial. By the way, I got hit today again with this like real harsh reality. Like, holy shit, this woman is fighting for her fucking life.
They had the camera.
It's like so much entertainment. There's so much
the camera on her today. Well, she just like kind of had this like glazed over look in her eyes. She
looked.
She has to sit in there.
She looked rough. Like she looked like she was in a.
It's rough.
What a high state of stress to be in for such a long period of time.
Oh yeah.
So anyway, today started with Dr. Baker. No, what was that? The doctor's the Russell, Dr. Russell, who is the dog bite specialist. Another just, I mean, man, the Commonwealth is hanging on by a fucking thread on this case.
She's less of she has an interest in dog bites, but she is a wound specialist.
She is a wound specialist, but she also has, by her own words, she's also the only person she knows who has such an extensive history in dog bite analysis.
Yeah,
and due largely to her her extensive experience in
emergency medicine. Yeah.
She also knows she knows distinctly the difference, for example, between a canine unit police dog and its bite versus a common house pet of the same breed.
Because she was treating a lot of patients that were being taken straight to jail from having been caught by canine officers.
She was like whatever. I guess she was like the doctor for she did the ER for a prison for the prison system in California.
I also thought it was really interesting that she had her like these incredible like resume that qualifies her for being an expert specifically on the topic in this case, and then like a half hour into her testimony answering questions, she just casually drops that she was also a police officer for 7 years. So she knows also
medical examiner.
Yeah, she was a medical examiner and a police officer and an emergency room physician and a professor that teaches this stuff.
Some people are so prolific; it's just unbelievable. Like I like this happens to me where I do it just shrinks me. I'm just like, wow, I'm so fucking absolutely nothing. This human being is just so prolific. So anyway, as prolific as she is, she was attacked by Brennan in ways that I think made Brennan and the Commonwealth look terrible. There was a moment where she actually like gasped, and I mean loud, when he challenged her or asked her. I guess he didn't challenge her.
The prosecution attorney was so rude to her, and he just directly asked her, "Do you have memory problems?"
It's weird being combative with somebody who isn't there being in any way like combative with the.
It looks really bad.
Prosecutor, it really does. So anyway,
because they had a whole day of her testimony with the defense, right? Because it's the defense's witness. So it was a direct examination where she just got to be like the cutest old lady who knew everything about everything, and then Brennan comes and like tries to beat her up.
I feel like when we watch these trials, especially like when you watch a criminal trial, like when you watch like Depp v. Heard, you have this, you have two rich people with rich people resources going toe to toe, and you get to you can compete. You can put them up competitively, comparatively, and decide which is the better lawyer and blah 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 all this other stuff. But when you're dealing with criminal, you're dealing with the prosecution, the prosecutor, versus the defense. And if the defense has money, in this case Karen Read, she has status.
I feel like I should like clarify what you said, because a lot of people do believe that there were crimes that were committed in the Depp v. Heard trial. But what you're saying is that it was a defamation trial.
It was a civil litigation trial.
Litigation, right? So there wasn't,
and there was no prosecutor,
right?
And so
she wasn't. If she lost, she wasn't going to go to jail.
But to me, if you want to see the disparity between money and what it means to have money lawyers, money experts, money everything, versus the state.
Yeah.
It's or in my case it would be or the Commonwealth, or in my case it would be my poor ass, right?
Right.
In a civil situation where I would not be able to afford the kind of lawyering, for example, that DiCaprio could, right? And get like the performance he gets, which is a cash paid performance. You can see this in a criminal trial. Like you can see this in Karen Read trial. Karen Read's lawyers are exponentially sharper, smarter. Their questions are so much more strategic. They seem like Brennan asks questions he doesn't know the answers to so often.
I think that his strength is in direct examination, Brennan.
He is terrible at cross. You're right.
Yeah, for the prosecutor.
But still, even his direct is like, okay, it's good. It's good. It's not like you wouldn't. But Brennan, you wouldn't buy that.
But I was very, very surprised that he actually loses his cool in cross examination when he's dealing with the defense's witnesses. He's like a dick. I just was not expecting it.
So are they. And by the way, let me stress that I don't think for a second that there aren't great prosecutors. I know there are. They are, but they might be clipped by budgets or staff or what have you, or political problems. So there's just a whole bunch of things going on there. But anyway, I just see such a huge disparity in terms of the quality of attorneys between the two, where Jackson and Alessi are fucking razor sharp, and where Brennan I see making faux pas after faux pas after faux pas, like just asking stupid questions and getting the answers he doesn't want. A great example of that was when he asked about
my God, yes.
When he asked about her reaction, Dr. Russell's reaction to Karen all but confessing, right, or professing that she, did she hit him? Was it me? Did I kill him?
I have it here. Hang on.
And the doctor, Dr. Russell, she responds in a devastating way to the Commonwealth, in an absolutely devastating way to the Commonwealth.
Damn it, I have it.
Angela's going to see if she can pull it up, and if she can, we'll read it. But oh my God, like it was explosive to me in terms of, like once again, I mean, the prosecution, the Commonwealth.
Here it is.
Their Commonwealth is fucked, and the reason they're fucked isn't because we're contemplating whether or not Karen Read killed somebody or not. They're fucked because there's no way they can prove this beyond any doubt. Go ahead. What did she say in response to this?
Hank Brennan, for the prosecution, asked Dr. Russell about statements that Karen Read has made in TV interviews. I'm reading this. The guy who tweeted this is Ted Daniel News.
Okay. Thank you, Ted Daniel News.
Asking Dr. Russell about statements Karen Read made in TV interviews. Dr. Russell provided a theory I've never heard her speak about before. And the statements he's asking about is Karen Read saying, "Did I hit him? Did I clip him?" She's guessing, but people are thinking that it's an admission of a crime. So Brennan said,
"Good, we know that."
Hank Brennan said, "When you listen to those statements, did you hear any of them talk about the idea or issue of collision or impact?" And then Dr. Russell responded. She goes, "Well, many people suffering from what's called an acute grief reaction. They make statements that are irrational. They don't make sense, and they oftentimes tend to blame themselves for whatever has happened." I've seen this many, many, many times in the emergency department. Because she's like, you have to put this into context. When she's taking these statements that everybody said that they heard her say on that morning,
yep.
She's just discovered her boyfriend on the side of the road. She doesn't know
Trauma,
what happened.
Pure trauma.
And so it's very
she
normal.
literally has his blood on her mouth
From trying to
give
life-saving
him mouth-to-mouth
CPR.
resuscitation.
Yeah, so it is really reasonable that somebody in that distressed grief state where they do not know what happened
That was the first
could
thing
be
I
like,
thought of.
how am I responsible? Because she does believe that maybe that she delivered him to this place where she now found him.
Yeah.
And so is she like, I'm responsible for delivering him? Am I responsible for his condition here? It's just, it made a ton of sense. And when she said that she's seen this, she was very emphatic. She said, I've seen this many, many, many times in the emergency department. Oftentimes they tend to blame themselves for whatever has happened, because they just don't know.
They blame themselves.
Someone is to blame. That's a grief. What is it? Like the stages of grief?
Yeah.
You know, there's like denial, and then there's blaming. Like they don't know, so they search. It's just messed up. I thought that was a really, really bad answer for the prosecution.
Oh my God.
Because it explains a lot. And then so his follow-up question was like, well, this interview was done years after. You think that grief reaction lasts for years? And the correct answer is obviously, well, she's recalling what she said that morning for the interview. She's speaking
but she also said that grief can last years.
She also believes that maybe those statements, those irrational statements in the morning, were the reason why she's in this fucking trial. So she's obviously replaying it in her head a bunch of times, ever since. Anyway, that made a lot of sense.
It was a fascinating moment. It was a terrible moment for the prosecutor because if nothing else, it creates doubt. But that wasn't it with her. But to me, that was the biggest moment that I enjoyed. It was just such a kapow moment. I mean, another interesting moment was in today's briefly dramatic was that the prosecutor brought up DNA evidence, dog DNA in particular, not being present in tests conducted over a year after the fact, and where the evidence had been gone through.
It was clearly mismanaged because you can't rule
very
out
unreliable.
You can't rule out that all of the evidence collected from John O'Keefe's body was not mismanaged because it wasn't managed. Like they didn't have a chain of custody for any of those items.
No.
Like we don't know where it was, and so you can't rule out that it wasn't contaminated or that it wasn't like cleaned or whatever. You don't know.
Yeah. So, he brought it up, did Brennan, and there was nothing established during the Commonwealth's case. So unlike the first trial, they did not bring up any DNA evidence whatsoever. So it was not introduced into evidence. There was nothing established. There was no foundation.
Yeah, so he brought it up in questioning, but the jury had never heard of any DNA. It was the first time they heard of any of this.
Right, so there was no foundation. So they immediately moved to a sidebar. And then that sidebar turned into a hearing, an immediate hearing on a motion by Alessi and by Karen Reed's lawyers to dismiss, to ask for a mistrial. But Alessi was so dramatic. He's pounding the podium and he's just shouting loudly that everything.
It's not my favorite that he does that. I don't think
I
that
fucking love it.
You do?
Oh, I love it.
I don't think it helps, and especially with this judge, I don't think she likes it. And so
I don't think she cares one way or another, frankly.
I feel like if the judge isn't receptive to that, then as a lawyer, your duty to your client is to like tone the shit down and play how the judge might want you to play so that you can gain favor so that it helps your client.
I related to his outrage.
Of course.
They didn't want to bring up DNA evidence during their thing, and it's the same thing with Proctor. They want to force the defense to bring in the witness they didn't want to call in Proctor, when the burden of proof is on the Commonwealth, not on the defendant. So it's kind of a remarkable situation. And anyway,
so
it was dramatic.
Did he lose?
He lost.
I mean, he lost the mistrial, obviously, but did they get to talk about DNA?
They did get to talk about the DNA, and you know what? It made no fucking difference. The DNA as it relates to the dog isn't going to matter. And what's interesting to me that another really interesting.
People should know it's inconclusive. Like they don't have.
It is inconclusive. They don't have any. They could not identify any dog DNA.
The prosecution can spin it to make it seem like there wasn't dog DNA, when really the tests are negative for dog DNA, meaning that it wasn't like they weren't able to collect the sample enough to test, or it could mean that there wasn't any dog DNA. Like it's ambiguous. Another,
and just to kind of move it along, because this is directly related in many respects. Another like big mistake for me, for the prosecutor today, for the Commonwealth, was So she's describing, and they're showing the picture of O'Keefe's arm, which has all these abrasions. And there's two photographs. One which looks more contrasty, and so the abrasions look more like punctures in some instances.
I hate that they use that one because it does look like it's been the photo's been adjusted to look worse.
I think it's just the camera, the camera on the phone or whatever camera they were using has auto settings, and I think that their auto settings were really bad. But it doesn't matter. High contrast. There's another photograph that shows that they really truly are abrasions and not as grotesque as they. I want to use the word.
The one up top
severe
still looks real bad.
Yeah. So, but what's interesting is she did. Dr. Russell got into the description of why she thinks they are a dog attack, and she talked about the parallels, meaning that these wounds were parallel, and also
so many of those wounds are two matching parallel cuts.
Yeah.
What other, if you crash through a glass table, right? Because they're talking about a tail light scraping him this way. You would never get matching parallel cuts all the way down.
What was fascinating about this was that what Brennan tried to do was paint a picture. So she says it's dog bites, and she explains the patterning, and she goes through all of her credentialed history and expertise on the and very convincing. Bad for there was a moment in Today that I just I was like, oh, Brennan is just she looks up at his arm. So getting to it, he then talks about these pieces of plastic that they found. And that these pieces of plastic were found within the clothing, and these pieces of plastic ended up in redirect were established as being 1/16 of an inch or smaller in size. And what Brennan wanted to infer potentially, which is weird because he's creating reasonable doubt right now. He's like literally creating reasonable doubt for his own fucking case. So he says, well, isn't it possible that these fucking plastics made it into the shirt? And that when he was perhaps struck allegedly by this vehicle, that he went rolling, and that these plastics, caused this fucking damage to his arm. And she said she looks up her feet. I don't know if you watch the trial. Russell's this. She's a great character. She looks like something out of like Secret of the Nim or something. And she's got the great like wisdom like elderly elder.
I'm sure the jury loved her.
Wonderful grandmother, but also just extremely wise, smartest person in the room kind of stuff. Anyway, she looks up, and she made what had become over this last day and a half of watching her testify, a familiar face of where she's just like this familiar face of just absolute like
what is your problem?
Bewilderment that you could even ask such a question. She makes this face, and she looks up at that picture at those arms, and she is like, there is no way that those plastic shards,
little teeny pieces,
created that damage. There's no, and the way she says it is to me as absolute. Now, remember, another thing that really hurt them is that they put up such a great witness, did Jackson.
Yeah.
Because this woman has literally treated thousands of people struck by cars. Thousands. Dead people, living people, people who were released right afterward. She has treated thousands of these wounds. This woman knows a car accident when she sees it. And it was interesting because he tried to confuse the jury by talking things about speed and asking her if she had any accident reconstruction experience or taken any courses or anything.
She's like, I'm here because I'm a wound expert.
She was like, I deal with. She's like, I've dealt with thousands of these accidents. I have never once known how fast the car was going.
Yeah, it's also another thing that she said too from the first day which was yesterday, right? Was her first day?
Yeah.
She said just on direct examination, she was like, they asked her, what are some of the signature wounds that happen when a pedestrian is struck by a car, at any speed? She was like, lower extremity injury. Obviously,
and she went over them
because cars have bumpers.
But what was interesting about them is that she went over them. When she went over them, she talked about things like severe bruising, dislocation, breaking of bones. She talked about these but she also got into water filling chest cavity, water filling lungs, like abdominal,
also like
internal injuries,
liver
lacerations to the liver, other major organs, and these kinds of things. And that later came back to bite Brennan in the ass again because he brought up that accident where the pedestrian was shown with the redacted face who had been struck in the front of the vehicle at 24 miles an hour or 25 miles an hour, and who was deceased as a result of the accident and had no broken bones in lower extremities. And so he brought that up to her and he said, well, this accident, he goes, you remember this example? And she was reminded and did. And then he said, well, they didn't have any broken bones in an accident. And she was like, they had significant internal injuries, you fool. Like he literally this is what I'm talking about in terms of quality of luring.
Not to mention, I really love that it's...
Because he knew that this fucking person had internal injuries.
Yeah, and it's that slide specifically that his accident reconstruction expert, right, who is like such a joke, but that his accident...
Fucking blue paint.
I know. His accident reconstruction expert found this case, right, of this guy that got struck at 25 miles per hour and was actually thrown 10 feet. And he was like, see, just like this one. But it was such an own goal because the car that he showed as the vehicle that struck him
damaged.
Was so dented and like torn to shit in the front from having been struck at the same speed, right? A pedestrian. It's like same circumstances, but look at the condition of the car and look at how Karen Reed's didn't have any of that damage, not a single dent from where this giant man was struck and thrown 10 feet, according to the prosecution.
So she, Miss Russell, or Mrs. Russell, perhaps, I'm not sure. She, I think she was devastating to the prosecution
I think so
in
too.
every possible way. I think that, and by devastating, I mean that at the very least, and I'm saying at the very fucking least, she created doubt. I think she practically exonerates Karen Reed because the injuries on the arm cannot make sense for anybody. There is no reasonable juror, I don't believe, who's going to look at those injuries and believe for a minute that they were caused by a taillight, by the way, that had exploded. And that gets us to our next witness.
Nope, not yet.
Not yet.
Let's go into the chat.
Okay.
Cosmic Urgency is asking, why would they cover up for a dog? They framed someone for a dog. Someone had to have sicked the dog on him for it to make any sense that they all decided to cover it up.
Well, liability.
I have an explanation for that. So the dog had a history, and once your dog has a bite history, you get no more grace in the courts for liability for any accident or harm that comes as a result of your dog being aggressive. So once
they rehummed the dog,
once it's proven that you know that your dog is a danger, it's just like you're liable for anything that it does.
Yeah.
And so that was the case with this dog that they had. And I also think that we're talking about Canton PD, and the jury doesn't know this, but there's just recently been a case where a Canton police officer and two other police officers were charged with crimes involving they faked a suicide. He killed his girlfriend or whatever. She got pregnant and he didn't want a pregnancy. Apparently the story goes that he had been grooming her since she was 15, and then she was in her 20s and he was much older, and then she got pregnant and she was going to keep it, and then so he went and murdered her. This is a horrible story, but this is going on in Canton PD right now, and yeah. I don't know when his court date is, and the jury obviously doesn't know this, but I don't know much about Canton PD, but apparently the locals say that it is one of the shadiest organizations ever.
Yeah.
And so it might be that these are the sort of people who feel like it's easier for them to cover up a crime because they're just used to doing this sort of thing than for them to face the music and actually have to deal with consequences. I don't know. I think it's
a combination of there's possibilities. I think liability is the first and easiest possibility. It could have potentially wiped them out. So if their dog attacked him, he fell down, struck his head and died, their intent might have been to make it look like an accident, not realizing
like he got hit by a snowplow.
Not realizing that Karen Reed would put herself into this position. Twofold. One, that she would coincidentally and inconveniently have this damage to her taillight, and then at the same time be sitting there going, what did I do? Did I do it? And that if you're trying to cover something up, and you've got somebody who's almost really to just take it, why wouldn't you just go with that, right? Why wouldn't you just go? You're already planning on not taking responsibility. You're planning on trying to set this up. So maybe they thought they could get away with it with a snowplow incident explanation, but instead they found themselves in an even better situation where she's Karen Read making public statements that potentially tie her to the decedent. So it's an interesting situation when you're thinking about trying to deal with a cover up. I don't want to be held culpable for my dog accidentally killing this guy.
Yeah.
The second thing that comes to my mind based on what I've been exposed to and watched through this trial is Higgins. Higgins was banging that dude's girl. Fact.
Yeah,
and
but then so that would be like if it wasn't an accident and he intended to harm John.
Or we have a situation where he was struck, argument. So here's the thing about dogs. Like that dog might have been chill. That dog might have been in the room chill, and then the argument starts.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden Higgins is like, you treat that woman like shit, whatever. You don't deserve her or whatever. I'm making shit up. Gets up, right? Fucking dog's like, oh.
Yeah, because if the dog trusts the two dudes in the room and this third dude comes in and they start an argument with him, obviously the
could
dog's
attack
gonna,
that attack.
gonna
And
pile on.
Higgins was a fixture of the Alberts' house.
Yeah.
I think he was fixture to their house.
Right.
Very close friend. So it's entirely possible that dog was familiar with him, and that dog ended up intervening in what wasn't even a physical act. That there could have just been an argument that led to. Remember, we're talking about drunk individuals too. We're not talking about people who have their faculties here. So we see a dog. It launches.
Even if it doesn't launch, he could have fallen on the ground,
sure.
And just been like, the dog could have like tried to maul him while he's on his side, and grabbed his arm. I don't know.
It's true. I mean, it's true. Especially dogs that are already skittish. Sudden movements, bangs, crashes. These are all things that can trigger a dog, and to even attacking erratically, completely erratically. So that's certainly a possibility. Then the other possibility that still sort of works within the scenario of Higgins is that there was a planned confrontation. Higgins did in fact invite him to the party,
like intending to beat him up.
So there might have been an
intending to beat him up, but he didn't expect that he would be
or
mortally
just to confront
wounded.
him and be like, I'm gonna take this girl. You know what I mean? Like some kind of like weird.
That's another thing too. Is like he could have. John O'Keefe was super wasted when he showed up, so it could be that he got like punched in the face and he ended up falling very badly.
This is what
and
I'm
then
saying.
all of a sudden they have like a more serious situation on their hands.
And I always go back to that story because it's like such a valid story in my life where my girlfriend's best friend and life's father at a Little Caesars, a guy walks in, he's too drunk, he's harassing a Little Caesars clerk, a young woman. My girlfriend's friend's father feels chivalrous in some way, or just wants to protect this woman, and he punches the guy because the guy gets out of control, whatever, according to him, and he punches the guy, and the guy falls awkwardly and hits his table in the corner, hits his head on the corner of the table, and he expires, dead. And my girlfriend's friend's father gets sent to 10 years in jail.
This is why you can't fight in public, guys.
For manslaughter, because he punched a guy.
Or in your friend Brian Albert's house.
And by the way, the damage to the I saw the pictures of this guy. They just and there was no damage to this guy, like from the fist. It was that he punched him, and then his head struck the thing in this curious, weird way. He lost his balance. He wasn't even day out. The guy just got lost. Scrappy drunk night. Boom, that falls. Boom, dead. So it is entirely possible that O'Keefe was struck without leaving any substantial marks that where a coroner or otherwise would pick up on them as being something related directly to the incident.
You see how we're
But
guessing?
Got this guy. Well,
you see how we're guessing?
This is what's important.
We have to come up with all of these weird scenarios, and the only reason why we have to do this, well, we don't have to do anything. The only reason why we're doing this is because they literally didn't investigate that house. There aren't any pictures that they're showing the jury
Right.
about the inside of that house.
No.
There's no exonerating evidence that anybody collected about the people in that house and that dog and any of these other things.
Nothing.
And so we're left to wonder, what the hell did those injuries on his arm come from?
Right.
And we're having to come up with these scenarios about how that might have happened. So
Think about growing my hair all the way out again. What do you think? Like down to here.
I think that's a terrible idea.
What if I got a little like what's his name? Miley Cyrus's father. What's his name?
Billy Joe.
What if I got a mullet?
Billy
Ray.
Billy Cyrus, yeah.
What if I got a mullet? What
It's
if
all
I
the
did,
same.
what if I did some Mickey Berkeley hard on here? Put a little mullet. I know I can't really. I mean, because
Hey man, go for it. Live your best life. You know what am I gonna say?
You gotta play along a little better than that.
I'm not interested
All right.
in your mullet.
That was not the only witness, guys. That was a hell of a witness for her, for Karen Reed. And
Okay, we have a book break.
You got a book break?
Yes. Courtney and Maisie is with us on YouTube.
Hi, Courtney.
I read the book.
Oh my goodness.
Loved it, by the way.
So much love for the book tonight.
Loved is in all caps.
Oh,
Loved
wow.
it, by the way.
It's so
I was really interested in the hangouts between the Pussy Posse, I think. I really think you should do another book talking more about your hangouts. It would draw people.
Oh, I'll definitely think about that.
With an exclamation point.
Well, I'm just so thrilled that you read the book, and thank you so much for doing that.
Thanks for showing up and telling us.
Yeah, I'm having
about
a really
it.
great day. I mean, you guys are really... This is like the third, fourth one in this live. I don't know. This is unprecedented. Because anybody who's with us who's like, I might read the book, they might like get convinced by all this. Well, thank you. So thrilled that you love the book, of course. And with me is Angela. You can see Angela, so you know her from the book. And she's my editor. My one and only editor. She's quite good at it, I must say. Anyway, so yes.
Delicate is saying something is happening with the audio on YouTube. Sounds like a video game like Frogger. LOL. That sounds bad. That doesn't sound good.
I don't know why that would be. Everything on all my systems say go. So I don't know. We'll have to check in with Houston. I'm sorry. I'll check the master and see if it's on my end. Is that everyone else's experience as well with the audio?
I just heard it from Delicate.
No, question.
On TikTok.
Yeah.
D. Wolker is asking, what's the book?
Well, the book is, my name is Dale Wheatley, and I wrote and produced a movie with Leonardo DiCaprio. Sound is crazy, huh? I can't imagine why. It's weird because I don't have any warnings or anything. Let me answer the TikTok question, guys. Hopefully the sound will sort out. I'm sorry.
Am I supposed to not be on the Wi-Fi?
That would be nice.
Okay, off.
But I have great connection, so odd that I'm getting these issues.
Maybe that fixed it.
Okay.
What's the book?
The book is called Too Real, a Hollywood Memoir, and it's I made a movie with Leonardo DiCaprio in 1995 called Don's Plum, and we got a lot of great attention from it because we pulled off a really cool experiment using improvisation, and we showed the movie to Leo to get it approved. So after Leo approved the movie, we were taking it out to get it picked up by major distributors and create action from the best in business at the time, including Bob Weinstein and Miramax, for example. And I know he's a bad guy, but back in the day, he ran the show and he wanted to buy a movie. It was a big deal. Tony McGuire suddenly decided that he didn't want that movie to come out, and so he kind of went on a clandestine campaign to destroy the movie and our reputations in the process. And I started speaking out about it in 2014, and in 2019, the New York Post put out a three-part documentary called The Curse of Don's Plum. The film I made was called Don's Plum, and for which I sat for an interview. And at the end of this documentary, Leonardo DiCaprio called me a thief and a liar. So that was stealing from the movie that I made, that I produced, that I wrote. And he was also saying that the things that I was saying in the documentary, or that I had said, they were not true. And that was a lie. It was a lie that he could, say with impunity because he has all the money and resources to get away with it. And so I didn't have to think that long or that hard to figure out how the fuck can I make him accountable, because I'm a writer and I knew that I could write a decent book, and so I immediately decided at that point that my response would be in the form of a book, and so I spent 4 years writing this response to Leonardo DiCaprio's simple statement upon me, I think, in life. And hopefully I'll have to deal with it for the rest of his life.
Do you have a solution for the audio? So
Seriously,
apparently
nothing in terms of the
TikTok is doing fine. But
There isn't some audio.
YouTube is struggling.
I'm completely at odds with it. I don't have any solution to this problem. It's very upsetting. All right, I guess we'll just wrap it up. And
Yeah, we'll talk about the last guy tomorrow.
we'll talk about the last guy tomorrow. If you hear the TikToks on YouTube, there was a sergeant who came in. Is it everybody's audio, both me and Angela, or just one person?
Let's just sign off. Maybe it's 9 anyway.
You guys are wonderful. So for those of you who stopped by with the book, thank you so much. I cannot thank you enough for reading and for sharing your thoughts.